Welcome to another exciting edition to Grove City Hockey Presents
Hockey in our neck of the woods, and you, sir, were a very talked about person towards the end.
I'm a fifth-year senior, kind of. Well, it's my sixth year of college.
Hey guys, we want to say thank you to our sponsor, Cutshield, for bringing you this episode. Make sure you check them out on the link below and use the promo code for 25% off your order. Used by all 32 NHL teams and players, Cutshield is the premier protective player clothing designed by players for players. Their innovative cut-resistant clothing has prevented serious injury to numerous players, including over 30 NHL players. Cutshield gives you the peace of mind to go out and play without worrying about injury. Use our promo code Grove City Hockey, all lowercase and no space, for an additional 25% off your order today. Welcome to GCH Podcast. I'm your host, Ben W. Stock, and with me is a very special guest all the way out from Colorado is Eddie Delgado. Eddie, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Ben? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. It was a crazy night with vehicles breaking down, getting that vehicle situation squared away. It's just one thing after another, for sure.
Well, life goes on, doesn't it?
Such is life, right? So, c'est la vie.
Yeah.
But no, I wanted to bring you on because I had saw a post on Facebook about your opinion on grassroots hockey and what we need to do to improve roller hockey a little bit. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about it. But before we get to that part of the conversation, I want you to take us back to the beginning. How did you get involved in hockey? Was it something that was your family kind of involved in it, or was it something that you just kind of like gravitated towards?
Well, let me tell you, I grew up as a basketball kid in New York City. Played varsity basketball in high school, but quickly found out that beyond high school, it was not going to be my future. But anyway, I'm what you call the unexpected fan. Mm-hmm. And I think most people understand what I'm talking about when I walk, or I should say back in 1999, okay? I won't say it was a concern, but it was a little bit shocking when I would go to tournaments or, any type of roller hockey event, and I saw a real lack of, and it's almost a bad word anymore to say diversity, but I was a little bit concerned, but I wasn't threatened by it or anything like that. I was very warmly welcomed by the community in Colorado and elsewhere. But my son and I just started. I mean, it was one of those things where I tried to get him involved in teaching him a little basketball. He's 6 years old. You go to Toys R Us and you try and get him the little sports kits, and I got him a baseball kit, and he was just beating up ants and stuff like that. But what was really interesting is that I bought him a little hockey kit, and the rest was history. Not only did he love it, like I believe any kid that you put a stick and a ball in front of loves whacking the ball. I mean, that's just a physical, mental thing that every child enjoys doing. And I firmly believe that that's what got us catching the bug. Now, for me, I grew up in New York City. Obviously, it's a hockey town. And I recall walking through my projects one time and seeing a bunch of kids, Puerto Rican kids, in their metal quad skates playing street hockey. Now, this is when I was a teenager, not to date me, but this goes way back. Now, I didn't think about it much then, except that I was really intrigued and going, wow, they're really playing hard. This looks really cool. But I unfortunately, as a child, often saw the girls roller skating, and I just thought, I don't know if I want it. So anyway,
Right.
that was something I missed out on. I wish that I had skated because in my dreams, I make a really good hockey player. But unfortunately, that wasn't going to be the case. But my son turned out to be a phenomenal defensive man, got me totally hooked on the sport. And I think for a lot of people that I call unexpected fans, people that you don't think would be expected to be interested in hockey for one reason or another, it's not a part of their community. And that's a big part of what I think keeps roller hockey from growing at the rate we would like to see it grow, is the accessibility. When you go to neighborhoods, real neighborhoods, you're hard pressed to find facilities, even outdoor facilities, that these kids would attract to.
Right.
But even more so, we're not going to them. We're expecting them to come to us. And what we're expecting from them is to come to us immediately into the ice hockey community, which involves expensive tickets to just go see a ice hockey game.
Right.
Everything about it is expensive.
Yeah.
So think about and I was that person. I was that person not earning more than $70,000 a year as a single dad. I try to provide a home and everything, coming from New York City to Colorado, I get my kids not going to go without. So that was the premise, and sports was everything for us, particularly roller hockey. But what really intrigued me is that as we're going through that process and he's playing in the 12 and unders and then eventually 14 and unders, and us parents would often look at each other and go, okay, now what? Right? So here in Colorado, back in 2000 or 1999, what a lot of people don't realize is that by 1999, we were already starting to see a flattening of participation in roller hockey.
Yep.
And a lot of that, we could look at a lot of different things that may have caused that. The failure of RHI by 99, the closing of beach roller hockey. I mean, those were two entities that really would have driven the culture of roller hockey. And unfortunately, when that went away over the last 10 years, it's almost like roller hockey's been in this limbo. We don't really have an identity that we can call our own. We're living off of and in the shadow of ice hockey, to the point, and I find this funny anymore, where I have this view where I used to sit years ago with other parents and coaches and so on, and I'd have discussions with them about the Nova Scotia Negro League, and they had no idea that existed. So I was like, I want to learn more about the history.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not a hockey player, but I'm an avid and advocate of the sport because I believed in my son and I believed in his friends that were a part of the high school, middle school league that we ran back then.
Mm-hmm.
We lasted for over a decade, but unfortunately the recession, it was like a light switch. And what was heartbreaking for me was watching the challenges that a lot of families were going through. We literally went from 1,400 kids in membership, 65 teams out of 40 some odd schools here in Colorado alone. And it was like a light switch went off. Parents were losing their jobs. They couldn't afford to be members anymore. And I was like, my head was just like spinning on how do I stop the bleeding? One of the things that we thought we'd do is we knew we had to grow a new community. I even back then said to people, listen, we can no longer just keep feeding off of white suburban kids and families. There's a huge population of kids out there from all walks of life, all demographics, and particularly, and more important, from a specific income bracket. that we in roller hockey are forgetting about. The market is wide open for roller hockey, but people have to start thinking about it on more of a business project, more of a serious growth project rather than just building teams. I think it's important to build teams. It's important for the older generation, those guys in their 30s right now that played in my high school, middle school league back in those days. We really need to count on them to step forward and start performing as teachers, coaches, anything they can do to get down to the grassroots on how a sport is actually built. And it's built by community first, not by just finding players and come try out. And all of that is important. But if you don't get into the community, you'll be lucky to maybe gather up 12, maybe 20 kids, and then that's where it'll stop. Because basically what you've recruited is your neighbors and the people that are close to you. But you really haven't hit the community. You haven't hit your local schools. You haven't hit your local high school. People fail to realize that in their own community, there are more elementary schools than there are middle schools, and there's more middle schools than there are high schools.
Right.
So think about the opportunity and I'm not saying anything that I haven't done myself.
Right.
Back in those days, we went to the schools. We went directly to schools. We gave them our material and said, hey, this is happening. And lo and behold, we went from this kind of dismal rink operators and USA Hockey Inline asking us parents, how can we grow roller hockey? And I would sit back and go, wait a minute. If you came to my job and asked and said, how do I make a better graphic design for my logo? I think the expectation would be for me to tell you how I can make you a better design to make you successful.
Right.
So when USA Hockey Inline in Colorado Springs came to a bunch of us parents, and some of us, we were rink operators. I had already started the high school league, and they asked us, how can we grow the sport? I was like taken aback because I'm like, wait a minute, you guys are in the business. You are USA Hockey that just started USA Hockey Inline. Why are you asking us? We're here to find out from you how we can grow our businesses, how we could sustain the sport, how we make it sustainable and last. Well, as we know now, USA Hockey Inline is gone. I hate to say it. I went on board with AAU. And, I'm beginning to wonder if there's an AAU inline program anymore, because now they market hockey because they're really entrenched into the ice hockey program that they have. But my position is that we need to get down to brass tacks. We need to get back to the grassroots. If we really want to grow our sport, we got to quit preaching to our own choir, and we need to get out of our shells, and we need to get out there and ground pound. And that is meeting people, talking to people, much of what we're doing as a group right now in meeting with the Colorado Avalanche to support us with the Hockey Without Boundaries. If we don't do programs like Hockey Without Boundaries, where are we getting the next generation?
Right.
How do we get new people, the unexpected fans, to come on board and realize what a great sport hockey is if we don't bring it to them and convince them this is a sport you can try? Your sport, your child may not be tall enough for basketball, large enough for football. He could be not enough for a lot of different sports, but man, he can play hockey.
Right.
There's no restrictions in hockey about size or whatever. If you are willing to put in the time to learn to skate, to learn how to puck handle, and be patient through that process, because I'm the first one to admit, learning how to play hockey is probably one of the most difficult sports to overcome because of all the different fundamentals that you need to learn. I mean, it's one thing when I grew up playing basketball to learn how to dribble, right? And you wanted to master that technique. Now imagine if I also had to master roller skating on top of dribbling. That's an amazing skill that's
Yep.
required on top of the IQ element, which every sport has.
Mhm.
And so that's where I came from. I love the sport now. Uh, it's been 10 years. I only got back in a couple of years ago when I got a phone call from some folks in Colorado and said, look, here's the situation we have here. We understand you did this before. How can you give us some encouragement? And, being away for 10 years, I wasn't aware of the overall situation in Colorado. So I thought, well, why don't we try and build a youth statewide league again? So I went ahead building the infrastructure and all that stuff, only to realize, and it was a kind of a rude awakening by the AAU folks, is that there are no rinks out there. And they're right. And I
Yeah.
lived through that process where I saw during our league, we had half a dozen facilities that we can play out of, to now we maybe have 3.
Yeah.
So again, and I'm sorry to keep, to go on, but my philosophy has been, but we have lots of outdoor rinks. And here's an opportunity where we can get back to grassroots. There's no reason why we stop encouraging kids to play just because we don't have enough indoor rinks. It shouldn't stop us from forming high school leagues. It shouldn't stop us from forming tournaments or any of that stuff, because we do have outdoor rinks, and roller season is a spring through fall season.
Absolutely.
So why aren't we doing this? And that's where we got together and said, you know what? That was a rude awakening when I was told there are no rinks. And I'm like, okay. And we had to rethink. And then I came back to Wheel Park in Aurora, which was built 20 years ago. And I thought, one of these days, I want to throw a festival there. And it's that image that's in that article, that
Okay, cool.
blog I wrote. And I
Yeah.
go, this would be perfect if we can just get the surface redone.
Mhm.
And we want to make Colorado another national hub like we were back 10 years ago
Yeah.
when it was like everywhere throughout the state. So anyway, that's kind of where I got started, pulled into it. And I've been involved in it for the last, almost 30 years.
Yeah, and it sounds like you said you just came back into it after being away for a few years.
Well,
It's very similar to my situation, where when I had to retire competitively after having major back surgery, I was reffing and playing, and then I was like, I had to stop cold turkey 10 years ago, literally 10 years ago, and then I was away from the sport for 7.5 years. So my son was 2.5 when I finally came back and started broadcasting live games, and then started doing the podcast shortly after that. And then now I'm just strictly doing the podcast. I'll do a couple of live events every now and then, but once we had our daughter, I was just like, I got to stay within, 20 miles. And the closest rink is in Detroit for me, that hosts tournaments outside of Chicago. So I have Chicago, I have Detroit, I have Indianapolis. Those 3 rinks, that's as close as I got. There is no rinks on the west side of Michigan where I'm at. I'm literally 0.5 of a mile from Lake Michigan. So everything is basically closed up. There's one facility that does like a 10 to 12 week season up the road, about a half hour, but it's a concrete floor. And then there's 2 outdoor rinks. One is smooth concrete. The other does have sport court. That's the other thing that we noticed though too, is that, sport court is very durable, and it can get wet. So I mean, having an indoor facility isn't the end all be all solution. I mean, it's great if you want to make sure that you can have games every week with no rainouts, but when you're in a position where you can't have those options, having a sport court versus having to play on asphalt or smooth concrete or even just concrete, I would rather take the outdoor tile all day long.
Well, here's the thing, and unfortunately, because of the old days,
Hmm.
and we were spoiled with so many rinks available. I mean, I don't know if there was a magazine out there telling retirees, "Hey, here's a great investment, open up a skate city," but they were everywhere,
Right.
and people were building these rinks for
Yeah.
roller. But it's like when things got a little tough, people didn't hang in there.
Mhm.
But the outdoor rinks were always still there. The problem is that they weren't being utilized. And we're gonna make our own bet. If we don't get serious about this, roller hockey is going to become just some niche sport. In fact, it's probably a matter of time before ice hockey in general becomes a niche sport. Because in terms of popularity, if you look at the data, it comes in like fifth in popularity in the United States, but it's a huge distance from fourth.
Hmm.
And I don't get it because when I watch hockey, I'm like, how can you not fall in love with this? This
Especially,
is awesome.
yeah.
But there are problems, Ben,
Right.
that are
Yeah.
keeping the sport from the masses. And I'm sorry, dude, but if I'm a 20 some odd year old parent with an 8-year old and I'm seeing guys beating the crap out of each other and blood all over the place, you think I'm encouraged to put my kid in that? What happened with football when all the issues about concussions came out? A lot of people stopped playing Pop Warner. Why? Because they were concerned of injury for their children.
Yeah.
Now, there are still, Pop Warner still exists, and there are still 6-year-olds bashing head to head in football. I don't particularly feel that's a healthy way to start out a sport. And that's why flag football became so darn popular globally now. It's an opportunity for parents of a certain demographic or a certain income to say, let's experience football without the other stuff,
Hmm.
rather than being locked out of football because of the other stuff.
Right.
And right now we're experiencing that with hockey, and I think we need roller hockey. We need ball hockey. We need an avenue to get kids to just step on the rink with their tennis shoes with just a stick and a ball. They'll fall in love. And then it's a natural, organic progression to go the rest of the way. But if all we're trying to do is say, to this 30-year-old parent of a 9-year-old and say, the only way to really get involved in hockey is to spend $600 on equipment, what are we doing? We're
Right.
shooting ourselves. I saw
Yeah.
I saw a social media ad the other day, and the first thing that came out of this person's mouth was, "We know that roller hockey is an expensive sport." And I'm like, "What are we doing? Why?" That's like backwards. That's the
Right.
antithesis of what we should be selling roller hockey. We should be telling people how safe it is, how non-violent and non-collision that your children will be safe. And if you decide to bring them into the next level,
Right.
then that opportunity is there. But why are we scaring the crap out of young parents
Right.
right out of the gate by showing? I mean, all the memes I see come out of ice hockey these days
Hmm.
are either gossip, fights, injuries, some catastrophic,
Hmm.
and how so and so beat the crap out of so and so. I'm like, wait a minute, where's the good stuff about hockey? Why aren't we talking about what hockey's doing for communities? Why aren't we talking about what the people at the top of the food chain are doing for the smaller groups at the bottom?
Yeah.
Why aren't they supporting roller hockey the way NFL supports flag football?
Yeah. And well, that really starts with the NHL. We need to get the NHL more on board with creating and helping us uh, get those avenues out there. It starts with like local professional leagues, chipping in and sponsoring and willing to do even just a minute part of their budget to help us, help all of us bring, the kids in. Uh, you know, we have a local league here only for ice. We don't have a roller hockey in my area. I think the closest one, like I said, for youth is where I grew up, and that place is I did an episode with them just a few weeks ago, and that place is booming. Now they're getting guys or parents driving, 45 minutes from Fort Wayne, from Kalamazoo, and from South Bend, which all three of those areas, they're driving to this little farm town in the center of Michigan, that's literally halfway between Detroit and Chicago, to let their kids play outdoor roller hockey, which I think is great. But there are so many opportunities to build on something, because roller hockey is not that expensive. All it takes is skates, some shin pads, pair of pants, some gloves, a stick, and a helmet, and elbow pads are pretty much good to go outside of that.
Well, and Ben, out of all those things you mentioned, which would you say are the most critical for safety?
The helmet, for sure.
Exactly. So if I'm going to spend $300 on a helmet, I know that there's value in that.
Right.
But where's the value in buying my 12-year-old a $400 stick?
There isn't.
Where's the value in buying him the most expensive Bauer or Warrior skates on the market? We've got to hook up and partner with manufacturers and distributors that can offer lower priced equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it come from Franklin, Sherwood. I mean, we got to get off this high horse thinking that the more expensive stuff you buy, the better it makes your kid play. And most of us with any reasoning power know that that's not true.
Right.
Okay? You buy a kid that's no more than 4'3" tall, at 10 years old, a $400 stick, you're going to cut it down, and then what's it worth? What's it doing?
Right.
You would have been better off just buying him a $25 stick to get started.
Right.
He's
and
not going to bend this at a stick. He's not going to feel any flex.
Right.
As a 9-year-old.
Yeah. So, and that's true.
We need to really start reevaluating the priorities on how we grow the sport, and stop thinking the way ice have been thinking, that the only way to get involved in ice is if you start in a place where your trajectory is only to be elite.
Mm-hmm.
And we know what the percentage of that is. And the math is really easy to figure that out.
Yeah, and I think the goal should be to play.
Right.
If you can just focus on, hey, I just want to play, or I want kids to play, the elite will get there. They will find the way to get there.
Well, that dad is going to ask me, hey, Eddie, my son feels he really loves it. He feels he's ready to move on. And this is where I talk about infrastructure. If we don't have the infrastructure for the sport, where am I sending him? Mm-hmm. If there aren't club programs for me to say, here's one in your community, contact so-and-so.
Right.
How do we do it? Right. So another thing we're trying to do is build fans. And I think that's critical. So instead of trying to build star players, let's turn them into fans first.
Right.
Okay. And that's our strategy from an open rink pro series standpoint.
Yeah.
We want to build fans. We want to get these kids within our Hockey Without Boundaries program. And we aim to go to all these social programs that exist for youth and say, here's a turnkey program. Your kids get a free stick and a free ball, and we want to introduce them on how to play. And by the way, we're going to do a little mini league thing. We're going to play, 5 weeks, one time a week, so on, and get the ball rolling. Yeah. But then when we do our open rink pro tour, these are the kids that are going to be in the stands. Right. And we're building fans now.
Yeah.
And not only fans for roller hockey, but it behooves every city that has an NHL team to get on board with those roller programs within their city, because they're building fans for them.
Right. And it's only going to build up from them, or build up from that as well. Because if I don't care who you are, if you get a chance to talk to a professional athlete, that sticks with you for the rest of your life. Like
And that's another thing, is that we want to let people know who those players are.
right.
So if I mean, I can just use Colorado. I mean, the stars that everybody knows about in California are not necessarily anybody knows of them here in Colorado. I mean, we know who CJ Yoder is. Most of us know who Eton is. And so on. But there's an opportunity to take these players and really get them involved.
Yep.
That would benefit in a way that would benefit them.
Yeah.
Instead of them giving and not getting anything back.
Yeah.
We want to give these players something back.
Yeah.
But we are asking something in return, and that is be more vocal, be more supportive to roller hockey, and let everybody know who you are. And let us tell everybody who you are.
Right.
So
yeah,
I
know Eton has his Dangle Dojo that he's starting to build up that brand. I know CJ's got the Paiha, which is he's been building that up for what 20 years now. And you've got Kevin Mooney over in Spain. Those guys, he's tearing it up over there with his club team that he's coaching. And you've got John Shivo, who's traveling all over the world. Right now, I think he's in France. He's playing. You've got the World Skate Games that are with the national or the World Championships, where you have Team USA all the way, and then you have teams from all over the world. Some teams that you probably never even heard of, or from countries that you didn't even think inline hockey would even be a thing. Namibia comes to mind, where they just took 4th overall. You've got India, in there as well. Chinese Taipei, aka Taiwan.
It's become an international sport. It's an international sport. But here's the thing, Ben. No one knows that.
Right.
The podcasts like yours or
Roller Dad
any of them, right?
Yeah.
They're talking about that stuff, right? But they're not talking that stuff to the unexpected fan.
Right.
They're not talking to me. I don't know about that stuff. How do we get that out? How do we get that out to the mainstream audience instead of just preaching to each other? Oh, Shavo did this, and Travis Noe did that. But if you go to the regular population, they don't know who these guys are.
Right.
But we're doing a terrible job informing the public who they are. We're keeping our sport in a bubble. And then on top of that, in that bubble, you have all these little bubbles that are in there working independently, coming up with their own thing and everything, which is great. But until we unify roller hockey and make it a sport of its own independent thing, its own brand, its own culture, its own music style, its own dressing style, we need some independence, dude.
Yeah.
We need to build this sport to be its own sport, like flag football has done.
Yeah, and most people don't realize that inline hockey is now starting to pick up some more steam. It's actually the second fastest sport outside of wrestling, and women's wrestling in particular.
Well, I could tell you it's growing overseas. It's growing in South America, and it's growing at every grassroots level, from ball hockey to roller hockey.
Yeah, because now at the World Skate Games, they're going to be hosting it in Paraguay. And also the World Championships this year in August is going to be held in China. So I mean, you're going to see the Czech Republic or the Czechia. You're going to see Team USA. You're going to see Namibia, Italy, Argentina. I think they made it into the top 8. And then there's 2 other teams that I cannot think of off the top of my head. I don't even think Sweden made it. Yeah. So,
Well, who's doing, because I notice a lot of our American teams are traveling overseas to compete in
mhm,
these
yeah.
international tournaments. Now, here's the rub. Who's doing an international tournament here in America? I know that
It's a great
AAU used
question.
to have USARS did the international games, because I remember being at one over at Taylor,
Hmm.
Michigan, at their beautiful facility over in
Yep.
Taylor. Wish
Yeah.
we
State
had one
Wars is
like
at
that
Taylor
here.
this year. Yeah.
But who's doing that here?
Right.
Who's inviting them here?
Well,
And that's what we're missing.
I think you're starting to see some of the international teams come over for the pro events
Well, like
at State
Narch and
Wars and
so on.
Narch. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You're seeing a little bit of it there, and then I think you're seeing a little bit, um, but you've always seen it from a individual player standpoint.
Right.
I know when I coached in Namibia, in 2012, they would send a team or a couple of teams every other year, depending on what age group they were. They would send like a 8U team and a 12U team, and then they would do like a 10U team and a 14U team like every other year. That's how they would coordinate that. To participate in Narch or State Wars. To try to get some of that international competition going on, and you're starting to see the benefits and the rewards from that, because they just took out Sweden, they took out France, they took out who else did they? I think they only lost to Switzerland and the Czech Republic, and I talked to Daniel Brayback, the Czechia goalkeeper, and he said that game was way closer than that than what when you watch it, it was way closer than the score indicated, and it was only a two goal game. So it was a really good game to watch, and it's tough. I tried to do my part to try to get it out there, so that way the casual fan can stumble across it and know, hey, this is where we got to go to watch these events, to see where these types that they are out there, that there are other countries. I even have interview lined up with Russia, with the Russian national, not the national team, but the what inline hockey is going on in Russia, and then I'm also working on trying to figure out a couple of avenues to get into India as well. Talk about them, and Jerusalem is another option as well. So it's out there, and it's bigger than most people realize. And
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, do you see how they fill the stands in Europe?
yeah, yeah, Spain, France. France has the French Cup, or the Copa de France, which is one of and that is just like watching the high school state playoffs. Like everybody comes, they watch it. They have a professional broadcast setup. I mean, it's tough to watch if you don't know French. Luckily, I took a little bit in high school, but I mean,
Yeah, so did I.
it's great. But the thing is that when you watch inline hockey, no matter where you're at, you know how the game is played. You know what you're looking for. Doesn't matter who's broadcasting it. It's always good to watch high quality inline hockey, no matter where you're at in the world.
Well, and here's the thing. Sponsors only want one thing: ROI.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get big sponsors involved in roller hockey, you better produce fans.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they care about. Well, who's showing up to the event? Well, we're going to have 500 people at this event, and they're not all girlfriends and parents.
Right.
They're actual fans that enjoy watching the sport. Until that happens, big sponsor names are not going to bother. We need to build a culture. We need to build a fandom so that when I go to a sponsor, and let's say it's Cheez-Its, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can tell them I'm going to have 1,000 people over a span of time, and that's worth something to you. But to have an event and you look at the people watching and it's just girlfriends, boyfriends, or whatever, not real fans. The fans I want are all those kids that are going to be influenced. And the only way we get those kids as fans and get them to the events is to go get them.
Yeah. Yeah, and the only way, and the only way that I can think of is we just got to keep broadcasting it. We got to keep showing them live events. We got to keep hosting live events in order to get those fans to stick.
Well, and here's the thing, it's not rocket science, okay? One of the approaches, and I have no problem sharing this. I mean, it's a strategy that to me is just common sense. But one of the quickest ways to get 50 kids to your event is go to the local youth organization, YMCA, United Way. They all have youth programs. Give them a reason to take 100 of their kids and show up. They have buses. I worked with an organization here in Colorado called Colorado Uplift.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you saw in the stream some of the images that I've been posting recently about our Hockey Without Boundaries back then. We had 80 kids from one organization show up. They all got a stick and a ball. The following year, same, another 80 kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's not rocket science, but you do have to get out of your little bubble and go get it.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm finding that so many in the roller hockey community either, I don't know what to call it, either don't know how, or they're not willing, or they're intimidated, or just don't have the social skill, or whatever it may be. But you got to fight that. You got to overcome that. Because there's a sport at stake here, and it could be the hottest thing on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, they're proving it in Europe. They're proving it in South America. Mm-hmm. But why do we have all these little bubbles in various places that are only going so far, and that's it?
Yeah.
They're not finding new people. They're trying to find new people to play instead of finding new people to come and watch.
Right.
And then from those people that are watching, trust me, they're going to come to you and say, how do I play this sport?
Right. No, I
agree. We got
agree.
to play the numbers. We got to play the numbers. And we got to quit sitting on our asses and pretending that everything's cool.
This is true. This is true.
Because it's not cool. We're like this.
Yeah.
And this could be the hottest sport on the planet. Economically, demographically. I mean, it's got everything going for it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm advocating. That's what I'm preaching.
Yeah. And it has a relatively low overhead when you really break it down.
Of course. I mean, think about what it costs to run an indoor rink compared to an ice rink.
Right. Yeah.
Look what the cost of running an ice club program compared to a club roller program.
Well, and then look at the
think of all the like fundraising you got to do to pay for the cost of ice hockey.
Right. And then on top of that, but then look at the amount of stick time that you get on ice versus what you get in roller hockey.
It's all of that, Ben. It's all of that. I'm not suggesting that in roller you have to have 4 or 5 lines, okay? Mm-hmm. But I am saying, if you're trying to grow the sport, I understand at the higher level having a smaller team, a lower roster. Totally get it. I would want that too. And especially if they have the stamina. And that would be a prerequisite for me as a coach, that you better be in shape and have the stamina to play.
Right.
Because if you're going to dog it, 5 minutes left in the second period, then you're not a benefit. But yeah, you're right. It's one of those things where we just need to get the grassroots, man.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing with Open Rink Pro Tour. And what we're hoping is what's going to make the Pro Tour successful is all our efforts with Hockey Without Boundaries. We're going to bring a whole new community that I know enjoys hockey, that they will enjoy hockey if we just bring it to them.
Yeah, and you have a great partnership starting with the Colorado Avalanche, who has a phenomenal team. I don't know if you had a chance to watch. I'm sure you had a chance to watch them since they traded away Rantanen. I find them more enjoyable to watch now without Rantanen than I did before. And I'm not dogging on Rantanen at all. I just think that Natchez just gels with McCarr and McKinnon so much better.
Well, there's some people that agree with you. Yeah. There are some that do agree with you. Me, I'm just always a nervous wreck. I mean, we've always loved the Avalanche. I remember taking my son to the very first introduction of the Avalanche when they left the Nordiques, and it was an experience here in Colorado. And the fact that they
Yeah.
won 2 Stanley Cups, you know, I mean, it just grew the sport like you wouldn't believe. And
Yeah.
that's what we're betting on now, is that the success of the Avalanche will help revive the sport here in Colorado.
Yeah.
And I think if we're successful in the model that we're using, man, I'm not out here telling people what to do. In all my posts and blogs that I create, they're suggestions, and they're more asking a question. Here's where we're at. What can we do?
Yep.
Well, here's what I think we can do. You don't have to do it, but this is what I did and it was successful. So give it a shot. And that's all we're trying to do in advocating and trying to get people encouraged that roller hockey, inline hockey is worth it. You know?
Yeah. And it's good, and it's great that you have passionate fans, passionate individuals that want to see the sport of inline hockey grow. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, was because you could see the passion, you could feel it, and you can read it in what you're, in the words that you are writing down on your posts.
Well, and that's what I want people to feel, because like I said, we're in a situation here where we want to save our sport, and I don't mean save it like no one's playing it.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to get together. We need to collaborate. The sport has to unify, or else we're just a bunch of little cells all over the place, little beehives, just roaming around, flying around, doing our own little thing, making up different rules for every little tournament, or not supporting tournaments.
Right.
Like, I'm trying to get people to support each other.
Mm-hmm.
I got people putting on tournaments 2 weeks apart from another tournament organizer. Like, wait a minute, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
We need to collaborate. We need to do things together. But that's a hurdle we need to get over.
Yeah, we need to work together, not against each other, in order for this sport to grow.
Yeah. I mean, and quite honestly, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I don't care what anybody thinks of what I've done. I've got my credibility. I showed it 10 years ago. But I want other people to do the same thing, that have the capability. I can't do it alone. I don't want to do it alone. I want to collaborate. I want to help Jam Hockey, a small tournament that's trying to get off the ground here in Colorado. I have to support that. And I've supported them wholeheartedly. It's their tournament, but I'm doing everything I can to create graphics for them, help them with press releases, help them with, stories that they can use to make people understand who they are and why they're doing it. A lot of times we don't know why this club organization, there's no identity. Like, why are you really doing this? Is it to create a program around your own child? What will happen when your child grows out of that age group? Will you then leave the program? I got asked that.
Yeah.
4 years into the high school league. Well, your son's graduating. Will you keep doing it? And I was like, are you kidding me? Of course I'm going to keep doing it. I love what I'm doing. I'm a manager, okay? This is what I enjoy doing. So we need people that'll stick with it and grow it, and not just grow it to just have a club team, but go beyond that. Put together clinics, put together your own camps, go visit elementary schools, drop off literature for their Friday folders. And that was 20 years ago. I don't know what they use with technology now for elementary school kids to get all the information at the end of the week, but find that out and get your stuff in there and let them know to come to your tryout, come to your games, come to whatever event you're doing, come to your clinic. But to just have a club program and just struggle to get new kids in the same old way, that's not working.
Nope.
Stop doing that and start doing these other things. And not because I said so, but because I've done them and they work.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those ones where if we don't make a change now, then, like you said, we're either going to get stuck in a rut or we're going to end up disappearing. And I know as fans of this sport, we don't want it to disappear. I do think the Four Nations Cup really did start to bring back some fans in. I think you're starting to see a little bit of an uptick in NHL game viewership is increasing, which
But
is
you know
great.
they're not doing that again, right?
The Four Nations Cup?
Yeah, they're not doing that again. That was
No,
the only year for Four Nations.
yeah, because it was.
They're going to try something different next time.
Yeah, well, because I think it was a precursor to get everybody kind of excited for the Olympics, which is coming next year. So there's not going to be an all-star game, which essentially what the Four Nations Cup was. So for that, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do in for the 2026-2027 season. How they're going to try to incorporate that once everything's all said and done. So,
well, I think they're on the right track because
yes.
As far as I was concerned, I didn't know anybody that watched all-star events, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, hockey. It's just a waste of time. They're not playing real hockey. They're just goofing around. And, you can only watch so much skills stuff. You want to watch hockey games.
Right.
And when I saw that game, aside from the gratuitous fighting, and I'm sorry, that's just my position. I think that's what keeps a whole large amount of parents not wanting their kids in hockey. I'm all for spontaneous passion because every sports has that. And you get into it. Ooh. But when all of a sudden some guys purposely throw down their gloves and then they're squaring each other up, and I'm going, come on.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if it happens spontaneously out of passion, if a guy takes a stick to the face and then he turns around and beats the crap out of the guy, I'm all for that. Because if I get hit that way, if I get slashed in the face, I'm coming after you. But to then wait, a whole period and then do all that, I'm telling you, it's like premeditated stuff. It's entertainment. It's a show. And we want to be entertained as a sport. But come on, man. These are old traditions that are 100 years old and beyond. And one of the things I feel hockey needs to do is get out of these goddamn old traditions and let the new kids create their own tradition.
Yeah, no, I agree.
We don't need to talk like uneducated Canadian missing teeth athletes, okay? That's a stereotype that was built by Canadians. And it drives me crazy when I see American hockey players going out of their way to sound like Canadians. And I'm like, my view is, I view hockey as an American sport. Because until Canada has 27 cities hosting professional NHL teams, to me, it's an American sport. Not Canadian anymore. It's an American sport. And if it wasn't for those American cities, where would the NHL be? They're complaining now in Canada how participation is diminishing for ice hockey and hockey in Canada. Why? Right? We got it all right here, but this is the problem. This is the other advocacy, the other problem. How is it possible, a sport, an NHL league that's been around 107 years, right? And if we're all old enough, or at least followed some history in sports, we all know that there were Negro leagues in baseball, basketball, football. We all know the history on how minorities and people of color were kept out of there. But that was in the 50s.
Right.
They've all grown from that. Now you have some people in the hockey that go, yeah, but I don't want it to turn into all this hip hop and all this kind of stuff. Well, nobody's suggesting that that's what it is. But if you invite everyone to play hockey, then let them create the culture.
Right.
Don't create it for them. Now, see, Ben, you got me going. I like this whole suits thing. Okay? Who came up with that crap except a bunch of old farts that wanted these young athletes to look like corporate executives? Now, I'm all for that because all the sports did that. Basketball had their players come in suits and so on. Football players, and those players that like getting down with a nice suit do. But you know what drives me crazy? When suits are mandated in a sport, and then you have a player like McDavid who rolls in a suit that he looked like he pulled out of a hamper. Okay?
It's true.
And then you have another player that looks, he's got this big striped suit, like totally fashion. That's individuality. And I want to see more individuality. Like, why are we telling a 12-year-old he's got to wear a suit? You know what, dude? Wear what makes you you.
Right.
Not what makes you into that old guy. You
That's
see what
true.
I'm saying? So
Yep.
there's a lot of tradition that we could pull ourselves away from to make it roller inline hockey. But I struggled with that years ago. I hated calling it roller because I thought it made it sound kind of juvenile and not techie enough. But I think whatever you call it, if you call it inline or you call it roller, it's still the same sport. Call it whatever you want. But let's make it happen.
Right. Absolutely. And it's only, like I said, it's only a matter of time before we either find the correct formula to make it better, or we stay stagnant with what we're doing, or we gotta
do nothing.
Or do nothing, which is, we are seeing some national development programs being developed. You're starting to see a lot of at State Wars at Narch. That's where a lot of the US coaches are seeing the talent. But it's tough when you have kids that that are good enough to make those national level teams, but they just don't have a facility or a rink to participate in outside of their local outdoor rink.
Where are the high school leagues for roller hockey? We need to bring that back. High school is the best way to get a whole group of fans all at once. You walk into a high school and you tell them you've got a program to start a high school league in your state, they will come.
You're seeing that on the east side of the state. They have a state championship. It's a club sport level right now, but it's gonna get bigger. I know they had 4 or 5 teams last year. I'm not sure about this season yet. I'll have to reach out to my contact to see what that's going to be looking like. But I'm excited to see. I know, it's tough for them because spring has a lot of outdoor sports that are taking over. You got baseball. I think there's some soccer, there's softball, there's a couple other ones that, tennis I think is popping up. So it's kind of tough to see what happens there, but you do have that aspect, just before graduation to run something, until a little bit of summer, but it's one of those, it's catch-22,
but that's where our gold mine is,
right
between ages 7 and 18. And where's Pieha going to be if we're not cultivating that age range?
Right.
Pieha Rocky Mountain was fortunate that the league provided 1,400 kids in high school and middle school that eventually went to play in Pieha. If that high school program didn't exist, where would they have come from?
Right.
We have to have those. We have to have a means to grab large swaths of kids to come into roller hockey. And trying to find them one at a time here and there into your club program, it's just not going to work. As a club, you need to get out there physically and meet those kids in the high schools, meet those kids in the junior high schools. If you have multiple age groups in your club, then you got to go where those age groups are. You can't just put a flyer in the community center or wherever it is you're playing out of and expect the masses to see that, you got to get out there. You got to visit those schools. They don't bite. I can tell you from experience, they don't bite.
They actually encourage it.
Yes, they want
say
kids. They want
they
programs for their kids.
Yep, they do. And and like you said, all it takes is just a simple, simple flyer to get the word out, to get it rolling, to go, hey,
A phone call, an email to
Yep.
those people, to the directors, to the principals, to the AD. What does that take to sit in front of your computer and write an email? That's
40
what we're
seconds.
doing.
Yep.
I've got a dozen emails ready to go out to the directors of all the youth programs, emails that will go out and reply to the people that show interest, emails that go out to that we've already sent to the Colorado Avalanche. And, we have to wait because they have a rule that while the season's in, it's all hands on deck.
Right.
So they're not going to contact us until the season's over. But we've had a relationship with them dating back to 2000, 2013. And just recently, we did a program with them with Game On at the Parker Fieldhouse while there was a tournament going on called the Mile High Showdown.
Yep.
And it was great. We had 200 kids that showed up.
Awesome.
And we hope to continue that with the Colorado Avalanche moving forward, but make it sustainable.
Yep.
It's not enough to just have 200 kids that one time. We want 200 kids that time, and then we want to go to the next organization and say, hey, bring us your 200 kids. And the next organization, bring us your 50 kids. And so on. There's over 2,000 youth organizations in Colorado. Can you imagine how many there are in your state?
Wow. No,
a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And that's not counting the schools. That's just counting youth organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Ben, we're doing it wrong.
I know. Well, you heard it from Eddie Delgado here on the GCH podcast. We got the rant, but it was worth listening to. We're getting past our push time here. But
well, we can talk for hours. Dude,
I know.
We can go for hours.
Yeah, but you do bring up some very interesting points, and we can make it work. So we just have to get out there, get the legworks done, and push and keep pushing, keep putting out the info that we need to get what we need to do to grow the sport and be sustainable, like you said, because it's there. We just need like-minded individuals such as yourself. I'm trying to do my part by getting the word out, trying to spread it as far as I can, from this country to other countries as well, to, hey, this is a watchable sport where we can enjoy good, high quality games. And something that I want to see not only in the Olympics, but I want to see it on television so that I can sit down and watch it, just like we see, old reruns of classic college football games or, NHL, Major League Baseball, basketball, all of that stuff. I want to be able to sit there, turn on the TV, and watch some roller hockey.
Well, that's another subject we can spend hours on is how do we make roller hockey transferable to television? How do we make 4-on-4 look exciting on a 200 by 85 surface? It's difficult. So unless they're moving fast and high energy, that's one way to make it exciting. But listen, before we go, I just want to thank you because this is exactly what our community needs. We need support from folks like yourself to spread the word, and I appreciate that wholeheartedly.
Yes, and again, Eddie Delgado, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the pod. I cannot wait to talk to you again because the passion and I feel like you said, we could talk for hours about this. We're definitely going to have you come back on at some point, and we're going to talk a little bit more because we are not done with this conversation. There's so much more ground to cover, and again, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to jump on the pod with me tonight.
Well, my appreciation goes to you for having me, so appreciate you.
That's going to do it for this episode of GCH Podcast. I'm your host, Ben W. Stock, alongside Chris Greco. Thanks for tuning in. Please make sure you like and subscribe on all our platforms on YouTube and on Spotify. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Cheers.